Hi, I'm Franka and I'm your host for Unsetting Expectations. As you know, or maybe you don't if you're new here, Unsetting Expectations is a newsletter for perfectionists, for workaholics, for people who never feel quite enough or who feel like their work is not quite enough. If you don't feel satisfied with what you produce, if you never feel happy and proud of your own accomplishments, hello, welcome. And I think this newsletter is the right place for you. Alongside writing, I always narrate the newsletters, and you are watching one of them now. The benefits of talking about high expectations are much greater when they come from a plethora of perspectives, which is why I am not the only writer of Unsetting Expectations, but I invite other people as guests to contribute with their own writing, with their own stories, and with their own experiences. One of those situations is today's newsletter, which is written by Eddie. And Eddie is how she nicely framed herself, a compulsive initial enthusiast. And what that stands for, what that means is, and let me know in the comments if you recognize yourself in this, you say yes to a lot of things, and then you feel guilty for saying yes to a lot of things because there are no hours in the day enough for you to be able to do all of those things that you've said yes to. And sometimes, honestly, you don't feel like wanting to do them. Eddie is that kind of person, and she described this, I won't call it a syndrome, let's call it a situation, a challenge, through describing 3 different people who live in her head, and each of them has a task. And that means that I will now leave you to Eddie's voice as she's narrating it, and I want you to imagine like it's live theater in your own head, because Eddie will be whispering in your ears and there will be a story unfolding right in front of your eyes as you listen to her. So without further ado, here's Eddie.
These are the confessions of a compulsive initial enthusiast. Daz. Daz works in sales. He's your go-to guy for a yes. You got a problem? Daz can help. He's always on. He's a go-getter. He's interested in everything, and you bet he's coming to the party. Yes, he's up for it. Whatever it is, he is your man. Jim. Jim works, well, no one's quite sure where he works. Jim wants people to like him so he can feel just a bit better about himself, because for a lot of not very unusual reasons, he doesn't always like himself very much. And however much he tries, he can't seem to ever quite achieve enough to feel definitely and permanently okay. Barry. Barry works in finance. He has to say no a lot. He has to make sure the company has the resources it needs just to keep going. Daz and Jim and Barry all live in my head. And what I mean by this is that thanks to Daz, everything new sounds dazzlingly, magnetically, rabbit in a headlights interesting. And thanks to Jim, I think if I can just get one more thing done well, I can stop wondering if I'm good enough at my job, at my hobbies, for my friends. Jim needs a lot of reassurance some days. And Daz helps Jim feel better with his big, enthusiastic yeses. Jim is grateful for Daz mostly, and they work well together. And it is absolutely true that the world is crammed full of things I want or need to be involved in the second I hear about them. Oh, there's a talk next week. Yeah, count me in. There's a new tree planting scheme up the road. Yep, I'll be there. There's a gig in 2 weeks. I am polishing my dancing shoes already. Oh, and there's a juicy problem that needs a solution. Well, I am halfway down the Google highway. I have got 2 obscure policy papers that might just help once I've joined a forum to work out how to understand academic references, and there's an online course for that, which I should be able to do later this week. If I don't know what something is, I'm going to find out now. And I don't know how I survived this long without knowing about it. I don't know if it's dopamine or some other brain chemical that I get a hit off when I found out about something new. Actually, now I come to think of it, why don't I know? Let me just find out. And that, dear reader, is a completely real-time example of how I lose minutes, hours, days, friends, jobs, reputation and sleep because I am fucking knackered and Barry wants an urgent meeting again. And so on the days leading up to the gig that we've got tickets for, I am anxious, I'm tired, I don't want to be in a crowded space, I don't even really like the band anyway. The anxiety builds to a deafening crescendo, and if we get to the gig, I spend half the evening in a toilet cubicle because there's enough space there. And if I don't go, then I've let you down, because I said yes, and I meant it when I said it, but I was saying yes to a feeling which has long, long flown away. I said yes to the idea of having fun and dancing and being with a friend. I said yes to the idea of having the energy to do those things. And that thing I said I'd help with, I really do want to help, but I said yes to you and to you and to you, and I have no way of finding time to make dinner, so I'm hungry, and there is no nutritional value in 1,000 yeses. And I can't sleep because of all the yeses, and I'm exhausted, and my brain is fizzing with the weight of it all, and then boom, a fuse goes. And it turns out that Barry has had to bounce the checks that Daz and Jim were writing. And now I'm unreliable, and I'm ashamed, and I am so fucking tired. So I vanish. Jim is now in charge, and no one can see me like this. The consequences of my own uselessness spread out like an overheated, collapsed dog. So, in the quiet of my own company, I can lick my wounds, I rebuild, I restore, and then I venture back out into the world. But I'm still ashamed, and now I've got to make up for being unreliable. And this is not the first time that any of this has happened, so the atonement must be bigger because it is built on layers of the shame of the last time and the time before that. And hey, wow, that looks interesting, count me in. Oh, I'm really sorry I missed your party. I would love to help plan the next one. Daz and Jim do a lot of overtime at this point in the cycle. Barry cries into his calculator, pours another whiskey. And it's taken me over 4 decades to understand why the power lines fall down so regularly around here. So what now? How do I make an honest woman of my yes? The short answer is, I'm working on it. I've rigged up an internal alarm system that goes off at the very approach of a yes, subjects any enthusiasm to a compassionate but thorough interrogation. To begin with, I just tried not to say yes to anything. I considered saying no to everything, but I couldn't quite do that. I definitely need to get to know my no. So at the moment, we're strangers eyeing each other up in a bar, meeting each other's eyes for a millisecond, then looking away and blushing furiously. I'm reading about self-compassion because guilt and shame, and then shouting at yourself for not being the person you want to be, leads to, drum roll, guilt and shame. And thanks to Rashmi and Josie from the Upfront Global Bond for recommending Kristin Neff. I'm trying to balance my energy books more by prioritising sleep, food and quiet. Having learned a bit about executive function and interoception following an autism diagnosis, I understand that I don't always get the messages that my brain and body are trying to send each other about how hungry or tired I really am. So I'm kind of feeling my way, energy-wise, back into my body. I'm learning more about why I feel the need to make up for myself and what part that has played in this cycle of yes, 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 crash. So the feelings of low self-esteem come from all sorts of places, but the way we often try and resolve it by furiously applying energy on trying to get our sense of okay from an external source is a total waste of energy because we're trying to fix something that cannot be fixed the way we're trying to fix it. So I'm trying to build a more solid foundation by acknowledging the things that I'm good at, recognising my skills and letting myself absorb compliments, but trying not to depend on them. I'm trying to let go of all the imaginary people that I think I should be and all the imaginary people that I think other people think I could or should be. And I'm just trying to decide that I'm okay, I'm enough right now, whatever right now is. I'm trying to be more straightforward. And realising all of this has felt a bit like being in a car that suddenly does an emergency stop. So it's really important that you stop, but it's quite jolting. And I'm currently, I guess, at the whiplash stage, which is I'm kind of pretty sore. I'm moving pretty gingerly, trying to see if anything is broken. And I'm definitely recruiting to replace Daz, Jim, and Barry.
So, what did you think about his issue? First of all, she's a brilliant writer and a brilliant narrator as well. But what I really related with is the experience of what she was talking about in my own life. So, for example, when I was younger, and I feel like a lot of this stems from when we are younger and we want to people please and say yes to a lot of things. I was also saying yeses for, especially in groups throughout maybe like last couple of years of high school and the first couple of years of uni, when you say yes to everything, to every meeting, to every party, to every lunch or dinner, and you're like, I don't feel like meeting people today, but I've said yes. And then you also have that fear that what if you say no and they never invite you again, right? So as you can see, Eddie's issue hits home for me, and you can let me know in the DMs, in the comments, wherever you fancy, wherever you can find me on the internet. What have you thought about her issue? And if you would like to have more topics similar to this covered into future issues. So thank you for tuning in into today's episode of the Unsetting Expectations newsletter. I hope you found it, I would like to say, amusing, but it may not be amusing. It could be triggering, it could be relatable, it could be informative. Okay. It could be informative. Thank you, Bruno, who's behind the camera. Thank you for being here. If you like this episode, if you like the newsletter, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. That really helps. And if you want to receive the newsletter each week in your inbox and you still haven't subscribed, you can do so in the link in the description box down below. And that's it from me today. I wish you a lovely rest of the week, and I'll see you next time.